the harmonics. You can hear the sustaining quality of this wood.
It doesn't stop. Wow.
The top is built with European spruce. And the logo is mother of pearl. I use gold-plated machine heads, and the fingerboard and bridge are ebony.
What can I say? It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's nice to be able to take a log and resaw it and turn it into an instrument.
I think it's a little more complicated than that. I hope it is. If someone's looking for a really fine guitar, what should they look for, other than your name on the end?
There's lots of guitars to choose from. I think the most important thing, when you get into the better instruments, you look for solid wood instruments. A lot of the less expensive instruments are made with plywoods or laminations of wood. And the better instruments will be made with solid wood. And I guess generally just look for tone, look for the kind of sound that you're pleased with, that you want to play. And the other thing to look for is playability. You want an instrument that you can play for hours and not feel the strain, not have to push down real hard, and be able to play with ease, an instrument that just feels right for you. And I think people can generally tell when they play instruments, and people are rather educated about it at this point. There's so many instruments to choose from. I usually get people that have played most everything, and then they come and they play my instruments, and it's nice to have them, you know, like them.
You were just doing a whole range of things. Could you say a little bit about what you were testing out, what you were demonstrating?
Well, the first thing I was working with were open chordings. And from that you can get a sense of an instrument's sustaining power, and it's just this general power, and also you can test for the different range of the instrument. You hear a chord like this, is an open sustaining chord, and then as you play up the instrument, you get a different sense of the balance of the instrument. Some of the higher chords is equally powerful as some of the lower open chords, which is, again, another thing that makes an instrument good, is that when the sound comes out balanced and doesn't favor a certain range of notes, but generally sounds even over the whole instrument. And those are some of the things. And the other style was more of the jazz style. A lot of the instruments I build for people that have play in the jazz tradition, and you want an instrument that has a lot of mid-range and quality to it in that way too. And then the harmonics are just a true test of an instrument's total, you know, just being right on. And play harmonic, you can hear all of the overtones and the whole series of I mean, millions of things are happening in that instrument. And the partials tell you, the harmonics tell you all the different overtone series that are being produced. And in a good instrument, you can hear that, and it will last and sustain. And it really just tells you how sensitive the instrument is. Yeah.
You call yourself a luthier, a guitar builder. How did you come to be a guitar builder?
Okay.
You might want to put it down before you start.
Well, I was born. I was living with instrument makers, and by living with them and watching them build instruments, and then I had a personal interest in the guitar, having started playing guitar when I was 10 years old. I decided to go ahead and try to build an instrument, and with their support and encouragement, I was able to complete an instrument. It took 6 months, but
Had you done any woodworking before that?
just a little bit, not that much. No.
Well, it's one thing just to build one instrument, but to go into it as a full-time, life-sustaining profession. How did you make that transition?
Well, I guess the first thing that occurred to me was that the instrument that I built was a super instrument. It performed well. It was everything that I had hoped for. And I figured if I could do that well with an initial instrument, then I could probably market my skill. And so I began building instruments, and just word got around, and you know, people played them and liked them and compared them to other instruments and checked me up, came up, checked them out, and played the instruments. There's a lot of marketing work that you have to do to sustain a craft like this. You can't simply be isolated in your shop. You have to get out and talk to performers, talk to musicians, bring your guitars around, go to festivals.
Well, you've developed your own unique way of building the guitar. In fact, we have a piece that we shot in your wood shop that shows some of the process. But before you get to the stage of bending, which we documented, you start with raw wood, and maybe you could tell us how you take it from a big trunk of a tree
right.
up to the bending.
Part of the way in which I build came from my initial experience of not having a school or anything to go to learn how to build. I started with a log, literally a curly maple log. And what I do is I saw the log on a bandsaw, which is called resawing, and I saw this log into planks, into veneers that I can then use to build the instrument. What I do is after I've resawed the wood, I take it into a sanding machine, which sands it to the proper thickness.
Did you also make your own machine?
Yeah, yeah. I think another thing you find as an individual artist is, and you're trying to produce instruments to compete with instruments that are being produced in factories. And factories tend to have a lot more money and capital outlay to buy machines, and I've had to build most of my machinery. The machine I built is a 3-horsepower, very powerful machine with an automatic feed system, which will produce pretty much similar to what a factory can do. And in terms of its overall accuracy, I would have to say it's at least as good.